created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Hello again, and welcome back to another program in this Wheel of Singing series. Before anything else happens, and before I forget, I would like to ask you if you feel like writing an email to us. Please write us at operawillofsinging@gmail.com, operawillofsinging@gmail.com. Then, second place, I would like to thank people who continue listening, and thanks God, more countries are still adding to the group of listeners that we already have had. Last time that I mentioned to you, we were 62 countries, territories. Now we are 68. I noticed the addition of Poland. Thank you very much, people in Poland who recently added to the number of listeners that we have throughout the world. And the second that I noticed immediately was the Bahamas. So people in the very beautiful paradise on earth that is the Bahamas are already listening to this program. Thank you very much for doing so. And I know that it will take, I think, in a separate program, in a coming program, we will mention the number of countries or territories that are listening by then. But as of today, we are recording this program on the 23rd of December. 2023, it is 68. So thanks again, thank you very much. And we are going to talk about today's. We are in the series where we ask ChatGPT in its version 3.5 to help us understanding or learning a little more about the greatest opera composers of all times. And today we are talking about Maestro Georges Bizet. Georges Bizet, that for many is only known by the very great opera as well. The greatest opera that a mezzo soprano would like to sing. Of course, I am talking about Carmen. In the past, we have talked about Le Pêcheur de Perles, another very beautiful composition by Maestro Bizet. But truth is that most people know him by Carmen. L'amour est un oiseau de ta da ta ta da 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 ta tan ta da ta tan. So even if you don't know Carmen, even if you don't know what a mezzo is, you certainly know the melody because the melody has not been only part of the opera itself, but it is very common, or not at least not very common, but it's frequent that movies take excerpts of the opera. The most well-known part is the Habanera, L'amour est un oiseau rebelle. This is the part that movies usually borrow from the opera Carmen. Of course, there is also the Toreador. Toreador, ta ra la 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 la, toreador, toreador. Ta ta ra ta ta ra ta 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 ra ta ta ra ta 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 ra ta ta. But today, even though we are not really speaking about Carmen, because Carmen deserves, if not one, if at least maybe two or three complete programs to talk about that master creation, Carmen. So we will not give as many details, or I will try to refrain myself from turning this into a Carmen program because today we're talking about Maestro Georges Bizet. So, of course, only based on the name, many people know, or you may infer, that Maestro Bizet was born in France. Uh, basing our response on ChatGPT, it says October the 25th, 1838, in Paris, France. And he was a prolific composer, best known for his opera Carmen, despite his relative short life. When I read it, I was really surprised because Maestro Bizet is another one of the great composers that we have in the history of opera that don't make it to the age of 40. Maestro Bizet dies in his mid 30s, and so it calls my attention that even though we know that he dies in his mid 30s, still ChatGPT says that he had a relatively short life. So I know that the average of life was shorter back then, but even so, saying that Maestro Bizet lived less than 40 years and call it relatively short, I think it's an excess on the ChatGPT's response. Um, says that it combined in his compositions elements of romanticism and realism. We're going to talk about it a little ahead. Bizet's musical talent was evident from a young age. Again, another example of a composer that was known from a very early age to be a gifted composer. Same case was for Maestro Donizetti, if you recall. Same case for Rossini, if you recall. Same case for Mozart, if you recall. So, Maestro Bizet is another example of this talents that are identified from a very young age. So Maestro Bizet started at the Paris Conservatoire at the age of 9, where he studied piano, organ, and composition. And it says that his early compositions showed great promise and won numerous awards during his time at the conservatory. However, Bizet's rebellious spirit and desire to explore new musical avenues sometimes clashed with the conservative views of his instructors. We all know, or you may be very well aware, that not only in the Conservatoire de Paris, but throughout the classical music and opera itself, there are many people that like to adhere to what has been already established, and whoever dares to challenge those well-established precepts are known to be rebellious, at least, and so it appears to be the case for Maestro Bizet. Maestro Bizet, at almost the age of 20, won the prestigious Prix de Rome, which is a scholarship that allows him to study in Italy as well. So he was exposed. Of course, it's evident that since he studied in Italy for a number of years, his experience was exposed to the heritage of the Italian opera, and that Italian style of composition influenced Maestro Bizet as well. So he returned to Paris with a broader musical perspective and a deeper understanding of operatic traditions, at least the Italian tradition. Even though we all know that at least in number of operas, there are more in the Italian repertory than in the French repertory. So that would be a good at least count in terms of number. It says that Bizet's breakthrough came with the opera Carmen, which premiered in 1875. I would like to say by now it was already he was reaching the end of his life. We will talk about it a little ahead as well. And it gives more details about Carmen, which we are going to skip. Tragically, Bizet did not live to witness the full success of Carmen. He died on June the 3rd, 1875. And this is, well, he didn't see the success of Carmen, and this has been also the case for many other composers who die not only poor or with not with no recognition, but also some of them not knowing what a success their compositions would later become to be. Unfortunately, he deceases. It says ChatGPT says that it is believed that he died because of a heart condition. Maestro Bizet's life was cut short, but the impact of his music endured, as Carmen remains to be one of the most performed and beloved operas throughout the world, which is absolutely true. And this only opera has secured a place for Maestro Bizet in the pantheon of great composers. I was just telling you at the very beginning, a few minutes ago, that many people may not know who Maestro Bizet was, but many people know the melody. Ta-da, ta, ta, ta-da, ta, ta, ta-da, ta, ta-da-da-da-dun, dun, dun, for our very much loved Carmen. His ability to blend diverse musical influences, capture the spirit of different cultures, and infuse his compositions with emotion continues to captivate audiences. You know that ChatGPT, based on the books that from which it extracts the information, and it is clear to, I think that it is very clear to all of us now that the style of writing of the books for opera and composers is so full of platitudes, and that's why ChatGPT tends to bias towards platitudes all the time without giving a much deeper foundation for such comments. So, we're going to skip the rest because there comes two more paragraphs of blah 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 blah. We don't want to read more platitudes by ChatGPT. You know that the following question that I like to ask is to ask ChatGPT to provide the compositions, the operatic compositions by Maestro Bizet in chronological order. You will notice, as it has been the case of all the other composers that we have shared, same case for Wagner that we know much more for the cycle of the Nibelung, Maestro Bizet, for Carmen, Rossini, for Il Barbiere di Siviglia, Maestro Donizetti, by Lucia di Lammermoor. Same case here, known by Carmen, but there are other compositions that you may have never imagined that he had in his catalog. Starting La Maison du Docteur, 1857. I'm pretty sure it's, if not 100%, at least a 90% of probability that you have never heard of this opera. La Bergère Châtelaine, 1859. And hardly ever presented on stage, so no surprises if nobody knows La Bergère. Then comes Le Docteur Miracle. This Docteur Miracle, if you are aware of the catalog of compositions are, and you are yourself familiar with Le Conte of Man, which we shared in a previous series, you know that there is a Docteur Miracle. So there is Le Docteur Miracle, 1857. Also, nobody ever represents this opera currently. Don Procopio, 1859. If you notice here, between 1857 and 1859, there are four compositions: La Maison du Docteur, La Bergère, Le Docteur Miracle, and Don Procopio. So if you would like to compare it to the volume of compositions between Donizetti and Rossini, and maybe even Mozart, who were very prolific, it seems to be the case of composing, or at least um, presenting four operas in 2 years for Maestro Bizet. Unfortunately, maybe we dare to share that that is not quality, that is quantity. Four operas in 2 years. Then comes the opera that we have talked about before, 1863, Le Pêcheur de Perles, The Pearl Fishers, that, as you may recall, when if you have the opportunity of listening to that program, I share with you that from my perspective, Le Pêcheur de Perles, it's like a fairy tale in the sense not only of the content of the libretto of the opera, but of the beauty of the melodies. Three of the most beautiful melodies are in there in Le Pêcheur de Perles, starting with the duet of Ron du Temple Saint. Au fond du temple saint, parle de fleurs d'or, enfant mal parle, and the very beautiful voice of the baritone. Je crois l'avoir encore. And this melody that keeps going and going and going with the two very beautiful voices of the baritone and the tenor blending. Ta, 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 le charmante plus belle, oui, c'était The second number for the voice, the aria of Nadir, Je crois entendre un cœur. Je crois entendre un cœur that is very difficult to sing, and back then I explained that it is very beautiful and again very difficult to sing because I would like to maybe share now that from my perspective, the la finesse, la délicatesse with which Maestro Bizet composes. If you allow me the comparison, I am not saying that he has the same style of composition, but the délicatesse of Maestro Bizet reminds me of La Délicatesse de Maestro Bellini because in the style of composition of Maestro Bellini, with a very light orchestration and very careful use of the melodies of the voice and the instruments, is something that I would like to say is similar as the case in the Pêcheur de Perles, where you have very delicate composition accompanying the voices, no excesses. Maybe the volume goes a little high when you talk about a couple of parts by the choir in Le Pêcheur de Perles, but for the most part, Maestro Bizet keeps it very quiet in the area of Nadir. Now going back to the area of Nadir, that is also many times sung in Italian. Personally I don't like it in Italian. That very beautiful melody of Je crois entendre encore caché sous le palmier sa voix tendre et sonore. Ta la 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 la. And then when you move to the third, because I was telling you that the third, three of the most beautiful pieces ever written in the world of opera in the catalog of Maestro Bizet, going back still with the Le Pêcheur de Perles, the aria for the soprano, which is also absolutely beautiful, that you need to keep it always with you, and that there are, unfortunately, there are not those many great recordings by soprano because it is the same case as for the tenor. This is a very delicate area that you really need to have not only an exquisite voice and a very homogeneous technique so that you can make enough justice to the area, but you also have to have incredible fiato and pianissimi as well. So that aria by Leila, comme autrefois, la 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 la, and where she shares that she feels alone, but she knows that she can be guarded at night with that very romantic, delicate style for singing and sharing about her love comme autrefois, comme autrefois. But going back to Maestros Bizet after Le Pêcheur de Perles, 1863, if you notice, it is 4 years after this first group of four. We move for La Jolie Fille du Perse, which you can find a very interesting recording of this opera. If you look for it, it is already in YouTube, where the very great Spanish tenor Maestro Alfredo Kraus, along with the soprano June Anderson, recorded this opera. I think it's very a very interesting material to listen to. Unfortunately, it doesn't have uh, two key numbers for the main voices, so that it can be more often represented, but interesting. La Jolie Fille de Perse. If you want to look for it for in YouTube. Jamile, 1872. Now 5 years have passed after La Jolie Fille de Perles and almost 10 years after Le Pêcheur de Perles. And 3 years later, the masterpiece of the compositions by Maestro Bizet, Carmen, by far the greatest opera in the catalog of Maestro Bizet. But here I wanted to mention something that for me it's very interesting. And this thing that I wanted to share with you is that if you notice, it doesn't seem to be the same composer that wrote or composed Le Pêcheur de Perles. While in Le Pêcheur de Perles, it is like a fairy tale, like a very, very beautiful fairy tale with very beautiful voices, even though there is some drama and a love triangle in there. At the end, the three melodies that I try to share with you, Je crois entendre un cœur, la aria by Leila, and the duet au fond du temple saint, very lovely. And then comes Carmen, this disruption. To start with, the first disruption is that he gives the main role to a mezzo. When usually mezzos, and you know it better than I do, mezzos are usually given a second role when compared to the soprano. Of course, you can argue, no, 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 Sansoni Dalila, of course, Sansoni Dalila, but think of Andrea Lecouvreur, important but not Andrea. Amneris in Aida, important but not Aida. But Carmen is Carmen. Carmen is everything and is the voice for a mezzo. And for Carmen, Maestro Bizet gives not one, not two, not even three parts to display her voice and talent and to show the public what Carmen is about. Maestro Bizet gives Carmen, of course, the habanera, L'amour est un oiseau rebelle, ta-ra-ta, ta-ra-ra-ra-ta-ta, the opening aria for the mezzo, but also gives her La seguidilla, près des remparts de Séville, chez mon ami l'île Spastia, j'irai danser la seguidilla, boire du manzanillo. Barely 2 minutes and 20 and 30 seconds, and in those seconds, Carmen captivates us. Then the next act is opening, and now he has given Les 36 Tentés, or also known as la chanson bohème, Les 36 Tentés, avec un éclat métallique, et sur cette étrange musique, les cingères se levaient. Ta da ta 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 ti, ta 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 ta. And later he will give to Carmen not only a very interesting um scene and act along with Don Jose, but will give her also the scene for the tra la 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 tra la 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 tra la 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 tra la 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 tra la 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 tra la 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 la. But that is not enough for our dearest Mezzo, our dearest Carmen. He will later give him the very obscure scene of La Scène des Cartes, where she will ask the letters, the carte, to give her a lecture or a reading of her future. That's where she will discover that she will die, that she will perish, and she knows that it will be in the hands of Don José. Encore, toujours la mort, toujours la mort. And knowing what will happen to her, she will continue. She will not refrain what she does. And she will have maybe one of the most violent scenes ever written, represented in the opera, which is the final scene of Carmen, the confrontation scene where she confronts Don Jose and finally she will be killed. And Maestro Bizet has given this much character to our dear Carmen that at the very end she yells, she shouts, Laissez-moi, sorry, oh, laissez-moi passer. So she's asking Don Jose, either you kill me or you're going to let me pass. Cette bague autrefois, tu me l'avais donnée. Tiens! And keep in mind that our very dear Mezzo has been singing for very long on stage, and Maestro Bizet has given her a confrontation scene where the tenor is at his upper in terms of mood and character, and the same case for our very dear Carmen. And she has to be an extremely, a very good actress, not only because she needs to appear seductive from her very first aria, and now a woman so sure of herself that says, Frappez-moi donc, oh laissez-moi passer. She's daring to give her life to continue being who she is. That is the Carmen that Maestro Bizet created. How comparable is she to what the other feminine roles that she created earlier? Not even close to her Leila. Not even close. Leila is a priestess and is adorable. C'est une adorable femme. Quant à Don José, Carmen, personally, I don't like Don José in Carmen. I really don't like it. I know many people and many tenors like him. Personally, I don't like him, but Don José is usually a spinto tenor because the orchestration is heavy and the number of duets and the endurance of the voice that he needs. A lyrical tenor usually doesn't get away with it, while Nadir in Le Pêcheur de Perles is a lyrical tenor. You need a very beautiful voice to sing that. Da, 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 da. While in this confrontation scene, for example, with Carmen, he needs to do things like when he says Je suis las de te menacer. Je suis las de te menacer. Carmen, tu me suivras. Veux-tu me suivre? So, of course, many people keep in mind that Maestro del Monaco and Corelli did great Don Jose's, of course, giving the drama that is required for this role, nothing related to what we have learned before in Nadir. Canto the other feminine role, or let's talk first about the baritone there, which is somehow, even though he's presumptuous, el toreador, toreador, tara. At the end, he's just a toreador who happens to have Carmen fall in love with him. I mean, he really doesn't have any hard feelings for anyone there. He's just living his life. While the role of the baritone in the Le Pêcheur de Perles is also very adorable, very lyrical as well. So something has happened in the life, in the style of composition of Maestro Bizet. Not only the years have passed, but also we notice that it even seems to be a different composer. When you look at Le Pêcheur de Perles, it is not the evolution. Carmen is not the evolution of Le Pêcheur de Perles. Carmen seems to be a very different composer that now is able to paint with great depth a strong, maybe the strongest character because it is motivated only by herself as opposed to Dalila. You know, in Sansone Dalila, Dalila is more imposed by the duties to her country and religion. So it is from a third party that the motivation of Dalila comes. While for Carmen, she doesn't need to explain herself to anybody. Carmen is Carmen. And that's what Maestro Bizet was able to create. That's what makes so interesting in the style of the composition of Carmen. But let's keep moving on. How can Bizet's composition style be defined? Unfortunately, again, several platitudes that ChatGPT extracts from different sources. So it says that it is a blend of romanticism with influences from various musical traditions, including French, Spanish, and Italian. His music is known for its expressiveness, melodic richness, rhythmic vitality, and orchestral color. I wanted to add a comment myself that even though we have said that Carmen doesn't seem to be an evolution of Le Pêcheur de Perles, what we can say is that Le Pêcheur de Perles happens, I was telling you, almost in a fantasy, but not putting a place to it. At least it's not the traditional Europe as it could be the case for Violetta Valery. Even though it is very close, these compositions are very close to those compositions by Maestro Verdi that happened that are based in the history of Europe, Queens, as in the case of Donizetti. No, he goes for something very magical. He chooses, if you wish to use expression, exotic in Le Pêcheur de Perles and a gypsy in Spain. You know that gypsies are really not from any particular country in Europe. If you're familiar uh, with the history and gypsies, you know that it is a very interesting subject to review. So Carmen is not really Spanish, but they happen to be in Spain, very close to Sevilla, that very famous city in Spain. But he goes, if you allow me to use the expression, he allows himself to go for exotic again, and takes yes melodies that can be understood as foreign to Italy and French that are his mother schools of academic formation. So, to define Bizet's composition style, melodic gift, rhythmic vitality. This rhythmic vitality, you find it mainly in the Les 36 Retentés or Les Chansons Bohèmes. Tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la, la 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 la. Tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la. If you notice, even if you don't know what it is about, it is sticky. You feel like moving your feet or clapping. Ta 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 da da da. Ta 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 da 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 da. Exoticism, I mentioned it. Uh, it's weird that part of the style of composition of Maestro Bizet, ChatGPT says that it is orchestration. And it is described as dramatic and emotional. And he experiments with different instrumental colors, textures, and timbres, creating rich and vibrant soundscapes, mainly in Carmen. We find that, moreover, uh, in Carmen. Operatic drama says that in his operas, Bizet demonstrated a keen understanding of dramatic storytelling. I would say personally that it is only for Carmen. Many people, in fact, don't like Le Pêcheur de Perles because they feel the stories, the narration is somehow poor. Nationalism, because he is believed to have incorporated French nationalism into his music. Well, that can be that can be challenged. Contrasts and drama and innovative harmonies. What other composers may have influenced Bizet? You know that I like to ask this question because I mentioned already that by the age he was composing, Donizetti had already reached his peak. Maestro Verdi was already working on La Traviata, Il Trovatore e Rigoletto, and if you compare a composition like Rigoletto and a composition like Le Pêcheur de Perles, they don't even seem to belong to the same or to similar years of composition. I know they are different composers, but they don't even appear to be part of the same time in history. So it says that Georges Bizet, our composer, was influenced by his father, also under the name of Georges, also Georges Bizet, now Georges Bizet Sr., influenced by Jacques Offenbach, that I am planning on also having a program for Maestro Offenbach. If you know already Offenbach, you know he's the master of operettas as well. And the opera that we shared here earlier, Le Comte of Man, they say he Bizet was influenced by Charles Gounod. Not so sure about that one. That can be challenged as well. By Gioacchino Rossini. It is believed that Gioacchino influenced in the rhythmic composition style of Bizet. Personally, I don't think so. Richard Wagner, who influenced him also in the innovative approach to opera and the use of leitmotifs. Uh, that could be, but let's keep in mind that Maestro Bizet was really not influenced not only by Wagner but by German opera. He was not really attracted to it. Folk and exotic music, we mentioned it earlier. Italian opera tradition, we mentioned it earlier. And Spanish music and dance, of course, what we have shared about La Carmen, Carmencita. And so one may would like to ask himself what happens between Le Pêcheur de Perles and Carmen, who doesn't even seem to be created by the same composer. What could have influenced Bizet to go for such a masterpiece, such as Carmen? And ChatGPT suggests that it is Prosper's Mérimée novella Carmen, because Prosper Mérimée wrote and published in the year 1845 La Carmen. I wouldn't be so sure that only because a guy wrote this one, Bizet was to be immediately interested in it. I still think there is something around the motivations for writing Bizet that is not there. The Spanish exoticism, it says that Bizet was captivated by the allure of Spain and its vibrant exotic culture. That could be where for that, he composed the habanera and the other dance rhythms to infuse Carmen with a distinctive Iberian flavor. It also says that the folk and gypsy music influenced him, the French Romanticism, the Italian opera tradition, personal experience and passion, and operatic innovation. If you ask me, out of these seven things that ChatGPT mentions, I don't think any of this really influenced the purpose of Maestro Bizet to go for Carmen. Personally, I think there is a motivation that we don't know about. This Carmen is like a new episode in the story of Bizet. He jumps from writing beautiful melodies for beautiful voices and then writing a tremendous drama where the style for the voices and orchestration is completely different. Something happens in Maestro Bizet that is not captured in the books that ChatGPT extracted information from. Are there any anecdotes around Maestro Bizet? Such you know that there are for Mozart and Rossini, but there are not. There are really not, because Maestro Bizet was very discreet, opposite to Maestro Mozart, known for the things he liked to do. Maestro Rossini, who was a character himself, or even Donizetti, who we know already that he unfortunately perished after having lost reason. Maestro Verdi is somehow also discreet, but also a character himself. Of Maestro Bizet, we really don't know anything. Except for the compositions he made, there are not scandals around him, which is very good because you know that people like to go around gossiping. So, fortunately, on that hand, he doesn't have any anecdotes. But I think that it would be great that we could learn more about Maestro Bizet. So good that he was discreet, so good that his life was not part of scandals, but unfortunately that we don't know much more about one of the greatest composers from the French opera repertory, Maestro Bizet. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you sometime very soon.